Okay, so most people have never actually met a true believer. Now, sure, we've read stories about believers, we know that true believers exist, but we hardly ever see them. Well, Be Holy is a podcast that shines light on the behaviors, the mindset, and the duties of a believer, so that we can recognize God's children even when they don't look like God's children. Yeah, it's a bit of a process.
Each lesson is given by our own Pastor Nard. Your sins have been forgiven. All you have to do is believe it, and God will help you through your journey. You've traveled long enough without Him.
Today on Be Holy,
God has prepared a place for you and everyone else who wants to be with Him. Hey, we're going to talk about that today. God has prepared a place for you and everyone else who wants to be with Him. That's good to know. That is very good to know. In a world where we are always trying to catch up, or no one has prepared anything for you before you got there. And then when you get there, you have to make ends meet or make things just kind of work with what you have. It's good to know that God is preparing a place for you and everyone who wants to be with Him. And when God prepares a place, trust me, it's prepared. Nothing lacking. You have everything that you're supposed to have, everything that you need. You'll have it because He prepared it. He prepared it. And a lot of people live in a time where nothing is prepared for them. You know, they don't have enough money. They don't have enough job. They don't have enough to do. They don't have enough ideas. They don't have enough support. Well, it's good to know that God is preparing a place, and you won't have to worry about that anymore. No more rent. No more rent, no more bills, no more costs. But He has to prepare it. We can't prepare it. As much as we want to, we can't prepare it. He is the only one who can prepare it. And that takes all the stress off of you. You know, because you see how hard it is to try to prepare something now on earth. Now you're not living for yourself. You're living for your children. You're trying to prepare for when you leave. They'll have enough money. They'll have enough resources. They'll have enough whatever. They'll have enough spirit. They'll have enough knowledge to do what needs to be done, or to carry on the family name. That's what you're doing. That's what I'm doing. You do enough to try to prepare for when you leave. Well, God has switched that whole thing around. He's prepared it so that when you leave, you're taken care of. He's prepared a place for all of us. And that place is in the spiritual realm. See, we live in this natural realm where things can die off, and things can be destroyed, and things can fall apart and be broken. Well, in that other world where He's preparing that place for you and everyone who wants to be with Him, there's none of that. No breakdown, no destruction, no war, no evil ambitions, no evil. And that's what He's preparing for you and everyone else who wants to be with Him. God prepares. God prepares. Let's go over to St. John chapter 14. We'll read a couple verses here. St. John chapter 14, verse number 2 says this: "There is more than enough room in my Father's home." This is Jesus talking about His Father, or the Spirit. Because right now He's in a physical world, but in the spiritual world is what He's talking about. There is more than enough room in my Father's home. If this were not so, I would not have told you that. I wouldn't have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you if it wasn't true. Verse number 3. When everything is ready, I will come and get you, so that you will always be with me where I am. You know, it's one thing to talk about Jesus. It's another thing to read about Him. It's another thing to try to study Jesus in books and manuscripts and writings. It's one thing to study him, but it's another thing to be with him. It's a whole nother thing to be with him. And that's what we're all wanting to do, is be with God. We want to be at one with God. We don't want to be at war with God. We want to do what God says so that we can actually be with him. I'm not telling you to do what a man says or a woman says or do what they say God said. No, we want to do what God says to us. And he's going to make sure we have the right message. He's going to make sure we have the truth. He's going to make sure we have what we need. We're going to say what we're supposed to say and do what we're supposed to do according to his will. And he's going to prepare a place for us after all of this life is over. We have a new life. He says there's plenty enough room. There's plenty of room in my Father's home. And if it wasn't so, I wouldn't have told you that there's plenty enough room in my Father. It's being prepared for you. In other words, you can't prepare it. Only God can prepare his gift for you and those who want to be with him. Verse number 4 says, and you know the way to where I'm going. He's going into the spiritual world to prepare for us a place to be. So if you ever grew up not really having a place in this world, not really having the support from whether it be your parents, your uncles, aunts, cousins, friends, you'll have support there. A lot of people grew up without having their own bedroom, and that's fine too. Just that you had some place to be, or that you could live, or that you were even alive is the most important thing. But a lot of people grew up not having their own house, their own apartment, a place to live, a home that they called their own, that no one else could come in and take or put you out of. But that won't happen with God. When he prepares a place for you, when you're in, you're in. When you're in, you're in. And so we're rehearsing on this earth, following what God says. The more we fight what God is saying to you, I'm not talking about what the Bible says. I'm talking about what God is telling you. He's reminding you every single day of what he told you before you were born on earth. In some kind of way, through the trials of life, we began to step away from God, or got further away from God, or we forgot what he said. And so he reminds us. And when he's speaking to you, he's reminding you of what he said. And he said, if it wasn't so, I wouldn't have told you. He told you before you were born. Some kind of way life separated us from him. And now he's got to remind us again. Now it's up to you and it's up to me to do what needs to be done for God to take your sin, for God to take you and take me in. We have to do what God says. And so he says that he prepared a place for us, so he knows we're coming. He set it up so that we wouldn't have to worry about anything. You ever been someplace where somebody told you to come and visit and you didn't have to worry about anything? They took care of the flight or the bus ticket or the hotel. They took care of it all. They took care of all your per diems. They gave you some money. They made sure that you were eating. They made sure you had security. They made sure people were looking after you while you were there, or they looked after you themselves while you were there. They prepared the whole experience before you got there. And when you got there, even though things might not have been everything that you thought, but it was still good because somebody planned and prepared for you to be in a place, for you to be in that state, for you to be in that country, for you to be in that city. Somebody made plans. And so God is doing the same thing. He's making plans and making preparations for us to be with him. Now, I don't know why after God has given us these instructions and told us that he's preparing a place for us to be with him, that we reject what he says. I don't know why we do that. We shouldn't do it. I don't know why we do it. Well, I know why we do it. It's because we're separated from him somewhat. We love God and we believe he lives and we believe he loves us. But certain times of the day or certain times of the year or certain times of the month, we go back to what we used to be, or we think back to what we used to be, and we got to pull ourselves out of it and come forward and do what God has given us to do and say what God has given us to say and be who God has given us to be so that we can be with him later. Some of you might not have a father, or maybe your father's passed on, but then we don't have to worry about things like that. In the future, where God has prepared us to be, we won't have to worry about what we didn't have on earth. We won't have to worry about what we were trying to get on earth. We don't have to worry about what stopped us from being whatever we were wanting to do and be on earth, because when we're with him, we're the way he instructed us to be. He's the way, the truth, and the life. Only he can make things better. Only he can protect us from this world and the destruction that's going to follow this world. He's trying to save us from destruction, but he always gives us a choice. You can choose destruction or you can choose to be with me. I'm preparing for you to be with me. But if you want destruction, okay, it's up to you. I'm not going to make you do anything. God is the one that will never lie to you. He will always give you a chance. He'll always work things out with you until he can't work things out with you, or until he won't work things out with you, or me, or anybody. God is fair. He prepared a place for you. If you don't want to live there, you don't have to. The alternative is not good. The alternative is not good, and it won't work out for you. So if you really want God to be in your life, be prepared like he's preparing that place. You be prepared to live with him.
Well, how did you feel about today's lesson? Speak with us at BeHoly116@gmail.com. Share Be Holy with a friend, a colleague, or someone who needs it.
Connect with us today at BeHoly116@gmail.com. Your support of Be Holy is greatly appreciated. Simply text the word GIFT to 614-363-6133. And if you're ever in Columbus, Ohio, give us a visit. Come visit us.
Brought to you by the First Church of Christ Apostolic Way, a small church with a big heart.